Hey, Mom, how's it going?
I'm good, son. How about you?
I'm
How about
well.
you?
I'm well. I'm super excited to have you on because over the last couple Kickstarters, you've developed quite a following, a fan base for people who love your Herbaceous How to Play and your Sunset Over Water How to Play. And I wanted to have you on because everyone likes you so much. Um,
Okay.
but we have a
I
new game, Herbaceous Sprouts, coming to Kickstarter now. We're on Kickstarter now, and we still need to teach people how to play. But unfortunately, you were in Panama celebrating your 50th birthday, so you couldn't be
Yeah, yeah,
out here on
yeah.
the West Coast. You were somewhere else. But what I thought I would do is I'm going to do the video, but to start, I want to explain the game to you because you haven't heard about it before, and it'll give you an idea, and then I'll go into the specifics with the camera over the like what you did for the last few videos.
Yeah, yeah.
So Herbaceous, you'll remember, was the set collection, push your luck set collection game with these beautiful cards,
Hmm.
lavender, tarragon, the whole set. And Herbaceous Sprouts is a bigger game, but it's based on some similar themes, and it has dice. So we have all of these incredible dice
Beautiful.
with this full color. There's that
Love it.
lavender and the tarragon, and these are prototype. But there's this new technology now for basically color printing art onto dice,
A
and so that's what
three-dimensional object.
yeah, and that's what we're going to be using, and it's really pretty. But
Hmm.
so in this game, what you're going to be doing is collecting dice and making sets, much like you did in Herbaceous. But instead of your own pots, everyone's working on one community garden with
I love that.
limited spots. So it's still
More
push your luck. Yeah.
Much more fun to
Well,
work
I
together.
mean, they're both fun. They're different types of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so the basic way the game works is somebody's the lead gardener, and they have a bag of dice, and this is my bag, but there'll be a nicer bag. And they're going to be taking those dice and putting them on tool cards. So there's a watering can, a trowel, and a package, some gardening gloves, a sprout,
I need those actually.
you need some gardening gloves, and they're going to be rolling dice and putting them onto them out. So there's going to be. Let me see if I can do this and actually. So there are going to
Yeah.
be a number
I,
of tool cards with
hmm
dice on them as a combination, and then players are going to draft or take turns picking one, and you get the dice and you get the tool. So the dice sit in your wheelbarrow, and this is all of this is fantastic art from Beth Sobel, but you are building up the dice in your barrel, and you've got a limited number of spots you can use, so you have to be using your dice, but you're going to be building up that collection, and you're going to use your tool cards to manipulate the dice, to get advantages, but at its heart, you're collecting these dice, and then as I mentioned, you're going to be planting into this garden, and so rather than the pots, which you're used to, and again, this is a prototype board with some extra edging, you're going to have this incredible garden.
Really, really
And
lovely.
in the garden, there's all the same,
Hmm.
all different pairs, and much
One
like
of a kind.
herbaceous, say I have 3 lavender, Twink. I
Yeah.
trade that in. I take my little sprout token and I claim the 3 lavender spot on the board, and then no one else can. Maybe somebody can get 4, or maybe somebody else can get 2, but I've sort of taken the 3 spots. So you're trying to the more you plant. If I have 5 lavender, it's worth even more, but somebody might beat me to it. So it's got that same feel.
Yeah.
So so
You
that
have to take a little risk.
yeah, risk and be patient, and the same sort of skills you needed in Herbaceous. But oh, and of course we
You
have
always beat me at Monopoly, though, and you were.
there's more trickery in Monopoly. But
Let's
so
not talk about Monopoly.
then there's a tall glass of lemonade, which
Uh,
is the sort of bonus card for being in every garden like that, or a biscuit. So that's basically the game. I'm going to turn the camera around and do a slower, more complete overview, but it really is that simple, and I cannot wait to play this with you the next time we get together, maybe later this summer, perhaps.
yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
I think so.
Well, so again, on behalf of myself and all of your fans, thanks for being on.
Have fun, guys. I can't wait to play.
Awesome.
Really.
Bye. Thank you. I am now going to give you an overview of Herbaceous Sprouts and how to play. This is for 1 to 4 players and plays in about 30 minutes. The single player game has its own variant rules, which were designed by Keith Mateka. The main game is by Steve Finn, and we're going to be playing with 2 players. For setting up with different players, you'll have a different number of cards in the tool deck, and for 2 and 3 players you'll be playing with these rival tokens, but in a 4-player game you wouldn't. Obviously you'd also set up for the other colors, but we will set that aside. Everyone has a reference card as well, which we'll set aside. So, as I was mentioning to my mother, in Herbaceous Sprouts, what you're going to be doing is trying to become the head gardener by scoring the most victory points, which are represented by these white numbers and green circles. You'll get victory points for planting in the community garden. And you will also get victory points if you are the player who has the lemonade card, and it's delicious, as well as for remaining dice in your wheelbarrow in different sets. We'll talk about that when we get there. So, at the start of the game, each player is actually going to reach into the bag, and this is all a prototype, but this is my orange prototype bag. There'll be a nicer one in the final. And you are going to roll 2 dice, and those are going to be your starting herbs, which you'll put in the spots on your wheelbarrow cards. Now, and for now, I'm actually going to do another herb here just for the example. So everyone starts with 2, and then one player is going to start as the lead gardener. It will be blue, and the blue player is going to reveal the tool cards for the round and place them into the tool shed. Now you'll reveal the number of players plus 1. So in a 2-player game, I'm going to flip over 3 tool cards. In a 3-player game, 4. In a 4-player game, 5. So I'll flip over those cards, and then my other job as the lead gardener is to roll out the dice that will then be put on top of these. Once these dice are placed, they can't change while on these cards. These are fixed, and this is essentially what's going to be drafted by the player who takes them. And obviously, I am just rolling these out as we go. So here we go. Here's the final set. Some nice stuff out here. Okay. So, once I do that, set this aside, and what I'm going to be doing as a player is picking a combination of a tool, or multiple tools, as well as the dice. The dice I can get forever, the tools, with the exception of one, I have to use that very round. So, I'm going to talk about that, but to start, let's say this player here, blue, is going to take this one. So we would take the dice, and we're also going to take the tool card. So the dice get added to your barrel. Important, if you don't have room, you only have 7 spots. If you don't have room, you must discard down before placing. So I might, have, and you can discard from your barrel as well to get your best combination. But basically, if I had 7 here and I got 2 more, I'd have to swap them out. Or more likely, I have 5 here and I get 3, that kind of thing. But right now, I have 5 of 7, so no problem. So we're going to ignore the tool for a second, and I just want to talk about herb dice and set collection. So I now have these dice in my plot, and I'll just set this aside here in the discard for now. I now have these dice, and as a player, what I'm going to be doing is creating sets, much like Herbaceous, and playing them into the garden, or playing my sprouts, rather, into the garden. So there are 4 sections of the garden, each that have different rules for different sets. So first, we have the all identical herbs garden, all the same, and that icon should look familiar if you've played Herbaceous, but this is for 3 of the same, 4 of the same, 5 of the same, and 6 of the same. So right now, I don't actually have even the lowest value, but say I had these 2 tarragon and another tarragon, that would be 3. I could return these to the dice bag and then take my token and place it on the 3 spot, scoring me 4 points at the end of the game. And once you've placed in the garden, you can't move your sprouts around. You've planted them, they're there. If you're planting in a spot that has multiple scoring points, the first player is going to get the highest value point. And that push your luck feel of Herbaceous comes into play because there's only a certain number of plots per section, and once somebody takes it, no one else can. So if I have 5 tarragon, and this player has 5 tarragon, question on my turn is, should I take the 5 now, or should I wait and hopefully get the 6 tarragon before the other player does and get that spot, because it's worth an extra 3 points. You're going to go back and forth on whether or not to do that a lot in this game. So this is all the same. This plot here is all different. 2 different, 3 different, 4 different, 5 different, etc. And so in this case, I'm better set up for that. I actually have 4 different in this set, so I could take that 5-point spot. Here is pairs, different pairs, I only have one different pair right now, but that can be used, and I could get the 3 points here by putting that pair in. If I had 2 tarragon, 2 saffron, and 2 lavender, I could take that 9 spot, but I don't right now. Lastly, you have the flower garden, and the flower garden is actually what uses the trowel. If you have a flower seed, here's the forget-me-not. If you have a flower seed, you may plant into the flower garden with a trowel and the flower seed. The yellow dice, and I'll go over this again later, but the yellow dice also have a trowel. So you can use a yellow die trowel and the forget-me-not or a card tool to do that. If you do that, in that case, and if I made a mistake, I don't remember what I had, you can plant in the appropriate forget-me-not plot, and the first player just takes the most valuable spot, and then subsequently players later. Okay, so going back to actual playing, I have my dice. I did get this trowel, but I don't have any flower seeds, so I can't really use it. And since it goes bad after this turn, I'll just put it in the discard pile. But, you know, for the sake of example, and because I might do it anyway, I have 4 different. I'm going to put these 4 different into the dice bag and then take that 4 different spot for 5 points. Now, on my turn, had I had more dice, if I did have that forget-me-not and a trowel, or perhaps a single pair, I can plant multiple times. You can plant as much as you want with what you have. But I'm done, and now it is the next player's turn. So on the next player's turn, they're going to look around and decide to take this. So this player is going to take these as well as the package. And the way the package works is if you have a tarragon or whatever's showing here, you can turn that to any other face of the die. So in this case, player might look at what they have, and now they have some options. They already have 2 pair, which they could play for 6 points, not too bad. They have 1, 2, 3 different, which they'd only play for 3 points, or a pair, or 2 of the same, which isn't worth anything. Now, looking at this, though, I could take this tarragon, and I could change it into, use this card, change it into rosemary, and now I have 3 rosemary, which would be worth 4 points. So since this is only good this turn, perhaps this player does this in the hopes of getting more rosemary later. This player also knows they're going to be first on the next turn because the dice bag goes to the next player, so that's a risk that's probably worth taking, and take it he or she shall. All right, so the last step is the player, there will be 1 remaining card every time. The dice is put back into the bag, and then you'll notice at the bottom of this card, there's a little diagram for the rival token. And this says the rival token is placed in the 4 identical herbs spot. Take this, 4 identical herbs, that is now taken. Now, had this player been paying really close attention, they might have said, uh-oh, that means I can't get 4, I have to get 5, and that's something you do want to pay attention to. But for now, I'm going to push our luck and see how it goes. So, that was round 1. Round 2 will come around. New player flips over 3 cards and getting some new icons here. And, oh, I forgot. Let me just back up for 1 second. The other thing that would have happened had a player taken this is they would have gotten the pot lavender and the glove. That didn't happen because the rival token was placed, but we'll talk about that now with these cards. So, I see, go here. I am this player now. I'm going to roll out 1 here. Ooh, cool. I'll talk about that in a second. And then I'm going to roll out 2. Oh, a rosemary. Very nice. Here. And I won't roll out anything for that. I'll talk about that in a second. So we have a couple new things here. And I will go over all the tools and things you can get. But we have now, on the blue die, there is the any herb icon. That means this can be used for any herb. Very useful if you want to use it for any herb. You also have a couple things here on this one. One is the garden glove. What a garden glove lets you do is when you have this item, you can re-roll any die once. Get what you get, you don't get upset. Also, you have the bay in this pot. For the bay in the pot, this is the only time you can save a card. You slide it underneath your wheelbarrow right here, and this can be used as if it were a die on any subsequent round, and it doesn't count towards your total. So saving these up is a big deal as you're going for the bigger plots. But let's go back for a second and go over the rest. Here we have the dice bag symbols up top. The way these work is for each of these, that player, when they select this, they're going to draw a die for each of these. So 2 dice, roll them, and then get those dice. You don't know what you're going to get, but you could get something you want. And then it has not 1, 2, but 3 gardening gloves, which is very useful. So you can re-roll these dice or possibly stuff you might have. This is pretty useful. Lastly, we have the trowel, but also here a package card with any side to any side, so super valuable. So this paid off, the player held, they will get this rosemary, they will get this bay, I have not gone over, right? And then I can't use the trowel. Okay, so I have a couple options here. Actually, I might be able to use the trowel. One option would be to take this green die, and we have the black die Susan, and I could change the bay into that, and then use that trowel to plant here for 4 points. That would be a pretty good play. Alternatively, and what I think I'll do in this case is instead, I'll go to a rosemary, which means I now have 5 rosemary. Don't have to worry about that. I'm going to take all 5 of these rosemary, put them in the bag, all in the bag, and then score 9 points. Big play. This player has just the tarragon. The re-roll for any herb is pretty good, as is the extra one. And this would be, do I want flexibility here, or I don't want the extra dice? Probably here would take this. I would take this, and then I don't really need to use the re-roll right now because I definitely don't want to re-roll that. And, this is as good as anything. But, hey, perhaps I want to see if I can get this bay. So let's do it. I'm going to use that to re-roll. And I get lavender, no problem. Still get to keep this card. Set that in there. And then here's the remaining card. We take a look. And here we're going to plant in the peony spot. So we're going to put that here. And that was the 2. And put the rival token. Rinse and repeat. Flip over this player's first player again. And we flip over more cards. And we are going to play until we've played the entire tool deck. And it actually goes very quick. It's a zippy game, which is really fun. A couple other things to explain. One is the lemonade card. Well, what's the lemonade card? The first player who scores in all 4 gardens gets the lemonade card. So it's a little bit of a race for it, just like the herb biscuit from Herbaceous. Also worth note, if the rival token gets in all 4 first, neither player gets it. Let's just go over the dice, the tools, and then final scoring. So in terms of the dice, you may have noticed that there are 4 different colored dice. All dice have the 5 herb sides. All dice have tarragon, rosemary, bay, lavender, and saffron. However, each color has a different 6th side. In the case of green, this is where the flower seeds are. So there are 9 of these dice, and there's 3 forget-me-nots, 3 black eye Susan, and 3 peonies, if I pronounce that correctly. And that's where you get those. Then on the blue dice, you have the any herb side for your 6th side, the wild side. Great. The yellow die has the trowel. So the yellow die likes the green dies because if you get a trowel and a flower, you can plant. Lastly, you have the red die, which has the red glove plus. Basically, this allows you to re-roll this die and any other number of dice in your barrow. So this is like a huge way to sort of change strategy when somebody has done something or try to get that one last herb you were going for. So those are the dice that is included at the bottom of the wheelbarrow card, including the distribution as well as a reminder of what those items do. So, let's pretend these are over here, whatever they were, and we're all happy. Okay. Lastly, let's go over the tool. So we went over the glove. One glove allows you to re-roll 1 die. The bag lets you take a die out of the bag and you roll it. The package allows you to turn this side into anything you want. So in this case, it's great. It's anything to anything, but normally you'd see something more like this, which is tarragon to anything, so you can only use it in certain situations. You'll have the trowel. Again, the card trowel works the same as the die trowel and allows you to have a flower seed and plant in the flower garden. You'll have the watering can. Now, no one received the watering can, but what the watering can lets you do is if you have 2 seeds that are exactly the same, you can use them to, and they don't have to be on the card, but if you have any 2 seeds that are exactly the same, say I had 2 bay, I can use these 2 in order to plant anywhere in the flower garden. So it's a way to convert herbs into flower seeds. And then lastly, we talked about the sprouts pot and how that's used. So we've talked about the different types of dice, we've talked about the lemonade card, we've talked about the tools. So we're going to keep playing and playing and playing, and eventually all of these will be picked up, and we'll have this deck exhausted. Boop, everyone gets the same amount of turns or plays, and then we are going to do final scoring. Now, probably doesn't look like this at the end. You know, I don't know how fair this is going to be. I'm just laying out, sorry, blue, if you are doing better or worse, and sorry, green, if you are doing better or worse. I don't know. Haha. And let's throw out a couple more of these. In single player, these get scored, and there are a number of other things going on, but in multiplayer, they're just blockers, but let's say that's what happened, and this looks like it could be the final board in a 2-player game. Let's also say that green actually got the lemonade card. I don't know if that's the case, but we're going to say they did. And just for the point of demonstrating it, I'm going to give this person a rosemary, and I'm actually going to make this a bay. All right, so for final scoring, what you're going to do is you're going to look at the board and then just score all, and again, I don't know how close this is, but score the different plots. So here for blue, and excuse me if I get this wrong here, but 6 plus 5 is 11, plus 6 plus 3 is 9, that's 20, 22, I don't think I missed any. And then I don't have the lemonade card, so I have 22. And then there, in final scoring, 3 things. If you have 3 different, it's worth 2 points, a pair is worth 1 point, and any flower seed is worth 1 point. So I think I said 22, 1 pair, and these can count in the final scoring, 23, and then 1 is 24. So let's see how green did when I randomly threw it out, and I already can see they did pretty well. So we have 9 plus 4 is 13, plus 2 is 15, plus 9 is 24, 25, 26, 30, 33, and then plus 2 is 35. And as I said, these are each worth, 3 different is worth 2 points, so 35, 37. So in this case, with me randomly throwing out tokens, this player will win with 37 points. The games are usually tighter than that, but then again, not usually throwing them out. So again, it is a very smooth game as it moves. It is a matter of focusing on the dice you have. The dice might come in leveraging tools as you're debating when you want to get in or out on the community garden and where you want to place. So this was Herbaceous Sprouts.